265.
Okay, it's 5:40 on February 11th at Tilton Town Hall. And Fire Station Committee members present are Kevin, Tom, John, Chief, Lisa, Caitlin. All right. Right now we're just setting up the computer real quick, and then we're going to go over approval of minutes. Did everyone get a chance to read the minutes that were sent out in the email for January 10th?
Probably trying to open it multiple times.
Did you get a chance to read them?
I
did not?
I'm electronically allocated commission.
Plus his transmission.
There's people here
You're comfortable with their?
happy with the way they are.
Did you have a chance to read the minutes, Caitlin?
Yes.
Were any areas of concern for you?
Nope.
Lisa?
There was one I noted.
One, okay.
Well, it wasn't really a concern. I didn't catch the pros. In the minutes, it said one of the pros of Center Street said prime location for response times. We didn't get that in our report. I can add it. I don't remember
I think
seeing.
there was a
We
lot
might
of
have- There was a lot of back and forth.
There was, and people basically being like, well, better for some, but not for others, and I think we took it off because of that.
Okay. So it was part of the meeting, but it didn't make it into our report.
Yeah.
So
that's
to adjust the
fine.
minutes, if you have a concern, do you want that part struck from the minutes, or?
No, I think
I mean, if
it
it's-
was part of our
it was
discussion,
discussed.
but I agree, I think Caitlin is right that
Just
we
leave it
ended
in?
up removing it because it is for some and not for others.
Right, so, I mean, I guess it's part of the meeting, but maybe it should be noted it was removed, I guess. Does that make sense?
We'll make further
Alright,
edits in this report
Extensive discussion
throughout.
ensued making edits to the report. Okay, that's good enough.
Say good with
Yes.
the minutes as written?
Yes.
Okay, so everyone in favor of accepting the minutes as
We
written?
don't have a motion.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to accept
Thank
the
you.
minutes as written.
Second.
okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's unanimous.
Okay, yes, okay. All right, so that's part one, approval of minutes. Okay, I didn't catch from the minutes any RFIs, per se, so that's good. And then we're into review of report contributions. So we're up to this. If anyone had areas of concern to bring up from the past, we'll continue on.
What you're seeing up there right now is the same text that of the last meeting. However, I reformatted it because there was margins and A, B, C. And then to make it into a format, there is one change I made right here. In order to have, we wanted to have this say 1, 2, 3, so we needed kind of an A to follow proper English. So I just made A directive of the commissioners, and then made it 1, 2, 3, and reformatted so that everything was aligned, so that we can start with a more formatted report.
Okay.
The last time we left off, let's see, we highlighted Park Street sits upon about 1.5 acres of land. I think you since
I
told us.
gave you the exact
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah,
don't,
But it didn't-
2.17.
I don't remember if it's.
It was in the minutes.
I think I can
Is it in the
find
minutes?
that.
So somehow it just didn't
I
get in
came
the
across that
report.
the other day looking for something else.
So, yeah, it was 2 something, I remember that.
0.14?
Well, but I
no, the Center Street is
Street's .14.
0.17, or 0.14, Center Street.
Yeah, the other one was 2.
2.07,
The second person.
lot the fire station is on is .42, and the lot where the training facility is located is 1.65.
Yep.
Okay.
1.65 Park Street.
Well, that's one
No.
parcel.
2.07 total.
Right.
Yeah, they're on this side.
So
The
far
training.
right in,
Um,
the same
Do we want to say like
paragraph.
the total of land owned by the fire district is 2 point, whatever it is.
Parcel,
07.
2.07.
total of parcels,
What's wrong with just Park Street sits on
2.07.
Keep it simple. No, what do you mean total of parcels? How many parcels are there, right?
2 point what?
07.
07?
Yep.
Okay,
Agreed.
I've got track changes on, so it shows
That's
us.
what's right.
So I suppose if that,
See, that's
we all
just
agree to
like-
that.
It's so much easier than that white out, ain't it?
Previous,
Well,
So
how
I'll
do you know
just
whether
accept
one
it,
is
right?
using your computer?
It's white out all over the screen.
How do you make that the same as the rest of it?
I'm going to,
Afterwards, you'll go up in,
I can
up there.
say no color, and then I go
Wait a minute.
back and say.
You can't do this, Kevin?
Review,
If you right click on that,
previous, accept, previous, accept. Now, I can stick that right up in that paragraph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't want to do it because I got track changes.
maybe.
Yeah, right up there, the facility at 149 Park Street sits upon 2.07 acres of land and was built in that,
Oh, okay, you want it up there?
you could do that. You could have another
Good.
sentence. I'm not grammatically,
Quite a few, aren't we? You
And
gave the grammar, I can't on a computer. That can spell.
you're better than me then.
Perfect.
all right,
I like that.
back
Yeah.
There's a lot of clicking, I just hit delete,
I know.
retype it.
She's
Backspace.
tracking the changes,
Yeah.
so she has track changes on it, so it's complicated to get it all the way.
Rather than just deleting and trying to find what
I
you
mean,
deleted.
I can change the track changes off, it might make it easier while we're doing it.
Yeah, there might be a lot of these changes, but maybe when you're doing it at home, that's good to have them all.
Right, that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Good enough. Oh, I like block format.
Didn't see that.
All right. So that was the only thing that had been highlighted last time. We all agree that this is here, I can accept that change, right?
Right, because then that allows you your directive 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Just make sure we get any input from other people.
No, you already had it all.
Yeah, but I had, for some reason, it's still got the tracks.
I know,
in
but
there.
now it's back on.
Shut it off again. I'll get that shut off.
Yeah, when it's shaded, it means it's on.
Todd won't be able to make it
So
tonight.
right now it's good.
Just check to see if anyone else sent any information. I don't like this new system.
So this is the last section?
The last section we did last time was evaluate the suitability of the station and land at Center Street.
That's
So
it.
those were the pros and the cons that we ended up with. Then the fifth directive was the student program and future firefighters. I don't know if that's the exact wording, I should go up and look at that. At the very beginning we had it, right?
The impacts of this.
Impacts.
Okay, look at the impacts. So we had come up with this statement, but we really didn't write a section on it last time. So I guess, is that our statement? Basically, if you're adding that, this is what you're gonna need? It's kind of hard for us to evaluate the impacts. I mean, the impacts are obvious, you need more space.
Right.
So I
I
guess
disagree.
we can type it that says if you're adding the student program, you need approximately 144 square feet per.
Only if you're planning on housing.
Correct, okay.
Okay, and you can put that for if adding residential student program, because then that covers whether we're housing or the non-housing.
And then we have future staff equals 70 to 100 per firefighter per shift.
If housed there.
So what is the square foot requirement for career guys?
It's
70 to.
It's around, the architect has it around, like, I think it's 97 square feet in his plan per dorm room.
Is that for two or one?
It's a single
Single.
bunk or a single bed or a bunk bed with 4 lockers in it and I think a nightstand or something like that. It's like 9 by 11 or something like, or similar size.
Now, I have a question for you. You have, go ahead.
Why is it different?
Because student program, we're going to have 2 students, and when you put 2 people in the same room as students, you put a desk in there as well for them, and then there's 2 beds, so it's just,
97 times 2
no.
isn't
So
144.
they're still sharing, like, floor space that
The alleyway in between beds, that's a shared.
area.
Career guys have a desk?
Nope.
Nope, they just have a nightstand, bed, and lockers.
Should we put something about this in the text?
So 97 square feet for one guy with no desk, 144 square feet, 2 guys with 2 desks.
Space to open the door, things like
There you
that.
go.
That's what the previous fire station committee set the thing at, and the architect was able to design it, so 144 was basically where it would fit.
The 12 by 12.
Yeah, exactly, 12 by 12.
But what they were called.
Yeah.
So wording should basically additional space and.
Chief, did you say 4 lockers in a career firefighter?
Yes.
The one shift we use that room.
So they each have a smaller locker in there to keep their duty uniforms rather than taking it home. And
They
then-
change their bedding every day.
Then the hot bunk, different person.
Should that say career stuff?
What,
Or
what's your logic on that it wouldn't fit?
If you got one guy requires 97 square feet with no desk, how do you expect 2 guys with 2 desks
Because they're bumped.
and a locker and whatever else is in there to...
So there's only, instead of 4 lockers, there's only 2? Because there's only 2 people, and they stay
Something
there
like
all
that.
the time.
So this shared space, instead of it cutting off and having lockers, you would have this shared common space. So like a bed, desk, and then a locker each one. But this shared space, that's how you're getting that 1.5 factor.
So do we need to describe all that, or is what we
No.
put up there good enough?
No.
Okay, so,
I see the requires windows part.
That's
I know
what I
it's
was
because of
about to
the
ask.
egress. But,
Well,
so both will require
They need windows.
yeah.
even with a sprinkled building.
Yeah,
44 square feet per 2 students.
yes.
Probably some quality of life
So I
thing.
can
You
say
can't put
both.
people in
Yeah,
a
okay.
box without windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it all,
So just sleep in there.
I
Right.
don't know.
That's where I have a concern.
all
I'm not
sleeping
sure,
areas
because-
require?
That's where it's rubbing in my mind, because I know a lot of stations out there where they have interior bunk space. It's sprinkled, so you have a means of egress.
So I got that from the code review at the fire station conference I went to last year. That's where I got that information from.
And it's based on which,
International, the 2018 International Building Code, IBC.
So
We don't need, we're
Because
not,
maybe we don't need to put
Not
that in
doing
our
that yet.
report.
Right.
Is that,
that seems like something for an architect to
Right.
consider later on.
Right.
So maybe not take that.
just
Yeah.
leave the square footage and get rid of the I mean, all of the requirements basically will be designed by your architect.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
gonna be various things about where certain rooms have to be placed, and I don't know that we wanna get in
And
that
layout
level of
and
detail.
everything.
I just saw the windows up there and
We put it down because we were talking about it last time. So how about I get rid of the windows,
Yes.
I mean, yes.
and basically we've just said, those are our two comments on that directive. Formatting wise, I don't know what I should do. Just leave it alone like that.
What was
Or
that
A
down
and
there a
B.
little further, that's 70 to 120 square feet?
that's the full timer. If they were to add an additional full timer shift.
But is it 97? Should we say?
You wanna say 97?
Well, the architect, I think you guys mentioned 70 to 100, the architect had 97, but you have to give them a little flexibility, it might be 98, might be, depending upon how they design things, how, if they have, how walls can be crooked and have like,
Sure.
So
if you have
how about we say approximately 100 square feet?
closets
Yeah.
beside each other, but they serve both rooms, they take up different spaces.
I
You leave it up to the architect. to
I think
figure
the 70
fun-
came from like, we could squeeze people into a 9, or like a, what was it, 8 by 8, or 8.5 by 8.5, something like
So
that.
if we just say,
7 by 10.
maybe I
Yeah.
stick the word approximately on both of them and leave it alone? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it could end up being more or less.
But you gotta take out that per shift part. At least the way I read that means, okay, we have 3 shifts, that means we're gonna have
Oh,
approximately 300 square feet.
oh. Is that what we meant? Because that's the way we wrote it last time.
Well, the domes are shared, so they're not all individual dorms.
Right.
Right, I think that's why we put the per shift.
I thought
It's
they were in-
Probably more per additional firefighter per shift.
Well,
Housing
if
for
housing
firefighters,
future,
staff,
it should be
additional-
full-time staff? Or
Staff,
future
additional policing.
If housing future career staff, I should put a comma, right?
So if you have 3 shifts, I read that it means we need,
Additional space
300 feet.
required is 100 square foot per
It's
fire.
the number of firefighters per shift, really, that's requiring how many dorm spaces you would need. Not how many
For
total
additional
But you're
firefighters.
saying If
firefighter
there's 3 shifts,
added
300
to
square
You would
feet.
need, so
That's the way I'm
that's how
reading
you're
it.
reading it, and
Yeah.
that's what we intend, I guess.
Is that what
you're
we mean?
saying?
No, I see what you're saying. I'm trying to wordsmith it.
and again, we're not telling the fire department how to staff
Right.
Correct.
the fire service. So you may add
Well, I think,
daytime only firefighters.
so impacts of the program, I mean, future firefighters is if we're, an impact is if the station is built to the current 3 bunks per shift, you will either have to use a bunk system or plan for an additional bunk space,
Leave enough room in there for a 4th bed.
or remove the student program and turn that into a bunk room.
I think the fact that we put the if housing part kind of covers the per shift. Like if that's the,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
or,
Housing future additional is approximately 100 square feet per firefighter. Doesn't matter whether
Right.
it's per shift.
yeah,
Right.
that's what.
It's
I
per
Is that what you're
firefighter.
thinking?
Yeah,
Just get rid
so
of
we could take per shift.
Because if you hire 2, you might need more.
Right,
You
so then you have
would need
200.
That makes sense? Okay, so we've done that section. So I think we just left these were from the old outline, the public participation outreach. I think probably what we're gonna be doing is, our presentation is probably the first public outreach we're gonna have, and March is coming very fast.
March 16th.
Do
So
we
are
have
we
electronic
presenting
copies of the
anything at
maps yet?
the district meeting? No.
We, I think it was the commissioner's intent that the committee present kind of where we are right now before the meeting, or at the very beginning of the meeting. Whatever, I talked to the moderator about that, and he said he's willing to allow that to happen.
So we're not going for any dollars or anything this year, but to
Nope.
let them know
Right.
where we're at, so that people can see this is coming down the pipeline.
So do we prepare some kind of a PowerPoint brief one? Basically
Yep.
summarizing, taking excerpts from here and this is what we looked at, this is why,
Yeah,
and here's the recommendations that we came up with.
right, like the list of directives. We don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to go over all the pros and cons unless, because that'd be like a whole,
No, but we can say
Presentation.
we looked at the pros and cons for this and we can say what we evaluated and then get to the recommendations. So maybe today, if we jump to starting the recommendation section, I think we've evaluated all of the directives, correct?
yeah.
Um,
And I think as a group, whether we feel we can do it today without everyone here or not, we have to make, at some point, we gotta come up with a recommendation for the commissioners. That was really what our charge was.
Yep.
Right.
We pretty much have one more session and then kind of a draft to the commissioners on the 3rd of March. So,
I guess we could all just state what, does everybody favor a certain?
I would suggest that the chair hold the committee.
what's the proper way of doing
Say that
that?
again?
I would suggest that the chair poll the committee as to whether we have a preferred.
Yeah,
Good
they usually
idea.
start with a show of hands, and if it's,
Okay.
Well, I like
or
to-
people don't want to do that,
The
you can
poll
vote.
is individual. So if you're gonna poll members, each member's gonna have to give up what they're thinking. Which is fine, I have no issue with that.
I have no issue
All right, so let's first review, can you go up to the
with it. Directives,
the directives, yep, so that people have that part
right in front of them.
right. Okay, so the best part is just go one by one, call, okay, just
One by
for
one,
formatting.
And you can,
All right, so let's go right to the left. Tom, you're up.
You want my, what I feel?
yes.
I think that's
I-
the way that they're saying is the best way to handle it.
I got two feelings on it. I don't believe we're gonna be able to build 2 stations to start. So that leaves me with number 1. But I believe we have to favor number 2 for the future, as time goes on. But I guess for this time period, I would say number 1.
Okay. We'll go right around the clock.
My recommendation is number 1, Park Street as a single station headquarters.
So we'll go through the polls first, and then we can get into discussion. Caitlin?
I feel the same way with the same things that were being raised. It'd be, if we had unlimited money, then number 2 looks more appealing, but we don't, so to be realistic, I would go with number 1 as well.
Okay. Lisa?
I feel the same way. I think in order to move anywhere forward in the idea of a new fire station, that we ought to upgrade Park Street to be a single station, and again, evaluate it down the road for future at another time, another station.
I don't get a say, I'm just,
Everyone open to getting his input? If you have concern with
I
it,
think
then
that's fine, it's not a vote, but
We're not voting, it comes time to vote, he is a non-voting
Right.
member.
but for
If
now,
he has an opinion, he's a member of the committee,
Yep.
so if he'd
That's
like,
the way I look at it.
if he'd like to share, but he's not required to share.
right? Yep. You're not required, but if you choose to throw your input up there,
so I like number 1, but my biggest concern with number 1 is, again, response times will increase with 2/3 of all calls that we go to by 2 minutes, approximately 2 minutes. And that's a concern of mine, because everything that I read and know about when you're constructing or renovating when you're locating a fire station, you want to do it in a manner that reduces response time, not increase it. So that's my biggest concern about number 1. And that's why I personally believe number 2 is the best answer.
okay. All right.
Can I ask? Or just leave it at that?
let's get his
Yeah.
input, and then we'll go into discussion of, I think that's kind of fair.
I think that's good.
I believe the most bang for the buck, the most likely to gain required public support to get this thing out of the can kicking road is number one.
Okay. My input is the same. I think that the viability of making it happen, I think number one is the best option, but there should be a concern down the road for number two. This might be what gets us at least to a working status that the public supports, and then long-term looking to see what the need of the district is down the road now. Okay, so that's the poll part. Please keep me on track of the next part. Now open it up for discussion or based on that. All right, yeah.
Group discussion or individual?
What's,
Group discussion or
Oh.
individual?
Do you mean like question and answer if someone has a question about someone's response?
We don't, I think what we don't want is everyone talking at once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
No.
We're trying to get recorded.
It could devolve into just talking
Chaos.
over each other.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll, each person, whoever has a question, that one will get the attention, and then we'll work through that and then move on to the next question.
Okay, and
That work?
maybe as we go around the table, include a vision, if you have one, for what it may turn out to
Okay.
Like down the road?
be.
Or,
No, just,
Implementation and things.
for example, I think number one's the best out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I would not touch the existing building.
okay.
I'd build one beside it. Headquarters and 2 bays, or whatever it would be,
Hmm.
make that what it needs to be, and leave the building that's there. Because as soon as you, well, I actually do not believe this, but I'm told as soon as you touch it, you've got to go with today's code. I don't, it's just one of the things I don't buy, but if that's the case, leave the thing alone.
Can I comment on that? I think that in order to move forward, they did ask us to stay on during the design of the station. And so that we can bring up those concerns and find out those answers during that period. But I think what the commissioners are looking for now is, you know, what is our recommendation? And whether we leave the building the same or whether they add on to it or they blow it, or, you know, tear it apart is the next phase of our role on the committee.
I do think though that part of our recommendations can include additional things to look into. Like, these are topics of conversation that came up. They were not part of our directives, but the next stage needs to consider these, one of which is whether we leave the current station alone or, you know, raise it and start again. Yeah.
You had a
Mine was
question?
just the chief, you know, that basically what I was saying. We definitely, we gotta get something else, but I just don't believe it'll happen or get it approved at this time. That's just my personal beliefs.
I do have a comment that, is there anything that stops us from upgrading Park Street as though it were a headquarters without touching Center Street, that you might still be able to utilize it to address your concerns?
Well, as
That's
long
what we
as,
talked about last time.
right,
Right.
that gets at number 4.
And what is utilized mean if it's non-compliant?
Right.
But I mean, if we just leave an engine and ambulance up there,
For storage.
who's to say you can't use it? Is there anything that will someone come in and condemn the building?
Yeah.
But at least if they
Probably not.
do, you've already designed Park Street as your headquarters.
Right. My understanding is that there has to be a plan to fix the issues. And I don't know if there's a time frame on that or anything. So like, this is our plan, or we're working towards a plan right now. So,
Maybe the issues are different if there's no one living there.
Right, I
Right.
think that's the biggest issue,
That's
is
true.
people living there, right?
Yes.
So if we get them people out of there, I don't know who's gonna stand up and tell you can't use it to park an engine and ambulance in it.
Right.
You know?
Or cold storage, you know.
Whatever it is.
Right.
plus you can drag things out like that for a very long time. Like in terms of, you
Right.
know, whether someone's not gonna physically go down there and drag you out of it.
And really, the only time, if there's anything parked there, any active apparatus parked there, only time is mostly any time it's gonna be there is to do a check on the vehicles or to take one
To the scene.
wherever it's going,
Yeah.
whether it's a scene or, I don't know where the hell they go.
Maintenance, something.
I remember, if I recall correctly, part of our discussion at our last meeting, when we were talking about the viability of, or the usability of the station in land at Center Street, part of that discussion was that it didn't make sense to have two stations that close together.
Right.
The idea of using that facility simply for storage from a business person's perspective, looking at assets. I own a lot of assets. I have a lot of stuff in my business. And if I have an underperforming asset, then I move it on so that I can use the money that's tied up in that asset to either operate my business or to acquire a performing asset. That land and station has some financial value. We don't know what it is. But is that financial value, does that financial value far exceed a storage building? Because from my perspective, that's all we could really, it could be used for, is to store excess of the boat, for example, in the wintertime. Could go in there. It's the value of that property far more than, a carport.
Well, it seems like the concept of the headquarters is that it would be built to accommodate all of our equipment that we have right now. While it's being built, we still need to use Center Street and such, but by the time it's fully built as a headquarters, we shouldn't even need that extra storage until we get to the point where we have to add more apparatus. And that may be a point that we have to look at that substation, because we'll have grown at that point. So I think once headquarters is fully up and running, we would stop using it and look at selling it, look at doing something else with it. Because ideally, we wouldn't design a headquarters that can't hold all of our stuff.
The other perspective with regards to, we keep talking about looking towards the future. And one of the, that exit 20 area, the commercial district of town is, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be where a lot of the calls go to. But none of us have a crystal ball. But the way that brick and mortar retail stores are going, and I read a lot about this lately, is that may not be
10 years.
occupied in 10 years.
Right.
We could have a bunch of empty buildings.
Sears in Concord is closing. Kmart in Hooksett is closing. The retailers are closing now. Maybe there would be small boutique shops that might, but who knows? There may or may not be the traffic. When I say traffic, I don't mean cars, but the number of people who are going to that area, those locations, as it is now. So what does that mean? Is there going to be more residential development in Northfield or more? We don't know. Are there going to be more demands on the services of the fire department in the future? We don't know. It's like the debate now, or it's not a debate, it's a fact that school enrollments are declining. Yet the school board's going to present at the district meeting that they want to spend $8 million to add on to schools for fewer students. It doesn't make sense.
I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I think that they want to bring the standard of the classroom up to grade, whereas the Union Sanborn doesn't have appropriately facilities to educate children in. That's my understanding, and that's what they're trying to do. And I think they're presenting three options: do nothing, upgrade the Union Sanborn to an appropriate standard, or get rid of the Union Sanborn and put an addition onto the Southwick School. I think that's, did I have that? You would
That
have
is
in mind.
correct. That's a different meeting.
Yeah, we don't want to get too off track.
But
I was using it as an example,
Okay.
saying that
But yes,
we don't know what the future is. We can only base our decisions on historical data. And using the school district as an example, the historical data is that over the past 10 years, enrollment continues to decline. And-
Well, it
but we
sharply
don't-
declined for a while and then has somewhat
Continued to
slower
decline.
decline now,
But
anyway.
regardless, it continues to decline whether it's quickly
Yeah.
or not. We don't know what's going to happen with the area where the majority of our calls are right now. So while we have to keep an eye to the future, we also have to build to the present. And part of the work that we've done over thus far, and then hopefully going forward, we don't want that to be wasted if the voters of the district just say, nope.
Right. So this is to support why you think number one is the better solution as opposed to pushing for a substation in a place where we don't know if that'll be the future need.
Yeah. And also addressing the possible continued use of Center Street.
And number one's never been proposed.
Right?
Number one has never been proposed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Number
No,
two
you're
is-
right.
Well, I think it has been in the past. Before I came here, it has been
Right.
proposed.
One
But-
time they tried to put an addition on to living quarters.
Right.
That's all.
That failed.
Why did it fail?
Because from what I remember was, I walked into the town hall and there was a artist's rendition of it. They never promoted it whatsoever. It just got presented, and people were like, what the heck's going on?
It was like no public involvement.
No.
Basically. And you show up at the district meeting, and there it is.
Oh, well, that's the big lesson learned here then. We need to inform people until they're sick of hearing about it. Like,
Yeah.
I know, yes.
Transparency.
Like, people, because you think you have informed and people don't know, so.
there could be also a couple of psychological impacts to this, that you're a district with two towns feeding into that district. So right now, you have a station in each town supporting that district.
Right.
So there's that bit of a there's a potential that if you put all your assets in Northfield, one town may feel they're not getting their fair shake. So that is a psychological value that, as we go forward, that is a
Well, I think-
potential for number one, that you could have some people upset with that fact that, what am I getting out of the deal?
Yeah. Well, that's why I think we need to talk about number two the entire time that we're talking about number one. We can say our recommendation for viability of this, and knowing that we don't want to shock you with a huge tax bill, is to go with number one right now. But we know that a lot of calls are in Tilton, and looking down the line, if needed, if this trend continues, that we would look at a substation. We haven't completely thrown that
Well,
out.
then
Yeah.
you just go to 3. You just build a new headquarters and
Mm.
leave Park Street alone. If there's
Right,
got to be
it
something
has to
built in
get
Tilton,
reevaluated.
you might as well, don't build a
Right.
substation in Tilton, put the headquarters in Tilton.
So if
That could be what people say. Yeah,
the
that's a good
headquarters
point.
in Northfield won't fly with the people in Tilton,
None of the others
what
are.
makes you think the headquarters in Tilton
We'll
Well,
fly
because
with
it's
Northfield.
there
fly with
now.
people in Northfield?
Because
And
it's there
technically
now.
Northfield has more voters.
There would still be a station, whether
There's
the
more people
headquarters
that
or
live in
not.
Northfield.
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
Yeah.
70% or so of
Yeah.
the budget is paid for by Tilton.
Right. Yeah, because that's where most of the calls are.
Well,
No,
it's
that's-
evaluation
No.
and
It's
call.
not.
Evaluation,
It has.
Oh.
it has nothing to do with the call volume.
Oh, really?
It's about the same though, correct?
Yeah, it happens to
It's
actually fall.
amazingly close.
Yeah.
Okay, but
within
it's
a
50/50.
percent or two.
It's not
Either way,
50/50.
it's not 50/50, no, it's by the total equalized evaluation, it's, they have a formula that does it, and so Tilton pays about 2/3% of the fire department's operating budget, and coincidentally, 2/3 of the calls are in Tilton as well, within a percentage point or two.
Yeah, it's
And it-
Despite
crazy
the
close.
voters being almost opposite.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So there's like
As a business.
3,700 residents in
Yeah.
Tilton and about 55 in Northfield.
And 300 will decide.
Sure.
Less than
Less than that.
Yeah.
Like, I think
Well-
at the last time we had an actual vote on the fire station at the Tilton School, it was 154
Three
people,
people, yeah.
53 people there
Right.
for a
So,
$5 million project at the time.
what's the breakdown with the turnout that we get at the? Is it representative of the towns, or have we ever looked at that? Like who
Depends on
actually
the
votes?
issue.
Okay.
It depends on what's on that warrant.
Yeah.
I've seen it heavy both sides, and I've seen it heavier one side than the other.
When we used to vote on Westlawn, when that station was there, people would pile in from that area of town to vote to give them the money, and then they'd
I
leave.
see.
They didn't care about the rest of it, they just wanted to make sure they were funded.
And you'll see that from time to time, if there's a hot topic on the warrant and someone's really hot and bothered about it, they'll get a bunch of people to go, and as soon as that thing is, that warrant, whatever it is, article, whatever it is decided, the place empties.
Right. So if we from
Football.
Northfield decided to get all our friends and neighbors together,
Well,
yeah.
But the whole thing is we're representing, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
So
well,
we're
you're
representing the
both.
whole district, and that's the whole
Right.
thing.
You
It
don't
would
think
be
it's
nice
one.
to have the whole district come in. That would be
Yeah.
the best representation.
Sure. I tried to get my mom to come. She's from Tilton.
at the last annual meeting, there was support to give you money for design,
Yes.
which
Yes.
tells me that everybody recognizes we need something. And without showing them exactly what they're getting, they weren't going to give you the whole ball and wax. So here is, basically, it's just our recommendation. I mean, the fire commissioners don't have to agree with us, they don't have to implement it. I guess this is a way to tell the voters, this is what our committee came up with.
So.
And why, and how
and
we
why,
got there.
and
This is
how
the
we
road.
got there.
So part of the meeting is there will be a warrant article for engineering fees. It was discussed. So this is going to speak to the people. It's like, this is the process that's going on. If you support it, then put the engineering fees in for the following year where we're going there. If you don't support it and you want status quo, they can shoot that down too, and we're where we are. They said that they don't want
You got the
change.
engineering fees
It was-
last year, you got
It was an amendment to the operating budget
to include.
to include $200,000, and you couldn't accept right of purpose to it, because that would have been against, the moderator didn't allow it, I forget the exact reason why, but, so they added $200,000 to the operating budget, and the intent was to use it for architectural engineering fees. And that's what, we set that money aside in an account, and that's what we used it for. We used about $34,000 last year. So there's $166,000 that lapsed and went
Okay, so
into
that'll
the
need to be explained to the voters.
Correct.
Because they're all
Yes,
gonna
yes.
say, wait a minute, we
Yeah.
gave you
Oh,
200,000
yeah, the
last year.
commissioner-
So it's still
for that
there,
part.
but it's in the
Unassigned.
unassigned fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
And so the warrant articles to transfer out of the unassigned fund balance back towards engineering and architectural fees, not to lapse. So
But
until the
it's
building is
not an
complete.
additional sum over what was last year. It's
The
to be able to
balance of what
reuse
was
it
last.
because it reverted back here.
Correct, and they didn't spend it, so therefore we
Right.
need to reappropriate it.
And-
And-
Right, and it references it'll be non-lapsing.
We have
Yeah.
a
Okay.
really good handle on that, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
We really do.
As long
Yeah.
as the voters understand.
Right. Well, that comes down to if the voters want to go with a new station, which is why this report is leading them to see that it's not a decision made in a vacuum. We don't have an engineered print to put in front of you, but this is the thought process that has gone into it. And do you agree with this, or do you want to tell the commissioners, no, I don't like that, and I want to stay with this? So this is that part of getting the public, give us some input.
Right. What do we want the public to do from this? I think we have to give them some kind of call to action. Like, are we asking them to recommend us on a path? Are we?
think that we're making a recommendation to the commissioners,
Yes.
and then from there, the commissioners are,
Presented to the district.
well, I think this committee will present to the district
Well,
as
Somebody
information.
from this committee will
Yeah.
present to the district.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the
We
whole-
agreed it should not be chief or
It shouldn't be me
commissioners.
or
Yeah.
commissioners, it should be
Mhm.
Someone,
Layperson.
and then from there, the commissioners can solicit the input and give a direction of which way we're going.
Mhm.
I mean, if the committee presents it and the public agrees with the committee, then it's like, keep going that way, or.
How will we sense that? What, are we going to ask them to come up and tell us their thoughts? Are we going
I
to?
think comment
Yeah.
will probably lead us
Well,
to,
Yeah. Just don't want us to be the
My
loudest voices.
Perception is that
Yeah.
prior to the meeting, the annual meeting, what we think will go to the commissioners. They'll stew with it and decide, do they want to present that to the public, or do they not want to present it to the public?
they're gonna present it.
If they
It
do,
would be silly not to.
they may have a different idea.
No, the commissioners are relying on you as a committee to do this.
If
They're
they
not
do
gonna
want it
change their
presented,
mind on that.
the idea will be presented at this coming
March 3rd,
March 16th.
to the
To
public.
the public.
Yes.
What goes on at that meeting?
Sure. There's no way to plan that.
No,
Yeah.
you can't plan it, you can't control it.
Yeah.
So,
That's fine.
so there's gonna be people, I assume that there will be a certain amount of public comment allowed,
Should be.
based on the moderator's feelings. We've heard from the chief that he's gonna allow some.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, I think that will hopefully solidify in the commissioner's mind, yes, you go to design, keeping the headquarters at Park Street. You go to design, and then in 2021 will be the sticker
proposal.
shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In competition with the school sticker shock.
That's.
Well,
and
the
that-
article in the paper that talked about the PD and what, 4.7 million?
Yep.
Just reading all the stuff about it afterwards, you know, there's people that say, why can't they add on, dig out the land, and like, they just don't know. That place is like Center Street, it's out of date.
If anyone has ever been in that building, they wouldn't say, well, they don't.
Right.
There would not be a single comment, they don't need a new one.
Right. And then
It's
there's
just
people
like
that
Center
say,
Street.
we need a fire station before we need a police station, which is good for us, but we're not presenting, so.
Right, they're the first one to the wallet.
And that's my only concern,
I agree.
is that
That's my big concern.
despite everything, and I'll tell you what, I have the best feeling about this committee, any committee I've ever sat on.
But to go back to Caitlin's question, I think if, and regardless of when when in the meeting the presentation is made, whether it's at the beginning or somewhere else, if the engineering fees dollars are approved at the meeting, then to me that indicates, yes,
Go for it.
we want to move forward with this. But does it mean that a year from now, the new station will get approved? No, because last year with no plan, with the plan being not approved, we then saw that we had engineering fees approved. It doesn't necessarily make any sense. But I think based upon, as Kevin was saying, public commentary, the questions that are asked, and then whether or not the engineering monies are approved.
They could, excuse me, sorry. Go ahead.
Give us a
sorry.
good indication of whether it's going to be accepted or not.
They could also, I guess, do something like what the school committee is doing at their meeting and throwing out options. Which option do you like?
So
doing
that
something
can't-
like that.
All the above?
None of the above.
Oh,
So
that's E.
you're limited in what you can do with that per the voting bylaws and all that stuff. You can't have a vote of A, B, C, or D. You can't. It has to be,
A or B.
yes, this,
Yes and no.
one or that. You can't have a triple. The lawyers got,
No multiple
Okay, yeah.
choice.
right, the lawyers were very concise on
I
that
hadn't
for
heard
us.
that, but, you know, so that's what I
That's how,
heard up to the
yeah.
point.
so that's been figured out by the lawyers on that. So we can't go to the public with this and it's like, okay, pick one of the, we kind of have to go with the best guidance that they give us.
You can't, yeah, you can't
Either
have
do it or not.
multiple
like, those are your
choices and the one with the
choices.
most
I see.
likes.
What will
Yes.
happen is I assume that the public will be able to ask questions of the committee, or the committee spokesperson. And then we would respond, similar to budget committee type stuff. That will give us a feeling of where people are, but the real end result is whether or not they vote for engineering.
So is that,
I think they'll vote for
okay,
engineering,
so
despite.
I think
Yeah,
the engineering vote will pass because
they've already passed it once.
it was approved even after voting down
Yeah.
a big dollar station.
Well, we really didn't vote it
We
didn't. The
didn't vote
chief
it.
kind
No.
of pulled it out.
Yeah,
I pulled it, I
Pulled it
withdrew
out
it.
Right.
and amended
Yeah,
it.
he was like, you don't want to do this.
There was still over $1 million proposal.
Excuse me?
There was still $1 million, or
What, for Park Street? That, I mean, it was all part of the same thing, I believe.
It was all together. It was, about 7.1, $7.2 million total project.
right.
The
And
bond was
there-
less than that, but.
Then there was an amendment to another big figure.
Someone amended, and I don't know if it passed or not, just to do the Park Street as a substation, which would have been like 1.5 or
Was that
6.
not your amendment?
No.
Oh, okay.
He had it as part of the engineered concept to go with the, he had it as part of that, so they said, let's at least take this
And do
part of
that.
that.
So
Oh, someone,
it's your
put that
perception
out? I
that
don't remember.
this committee will be answering questions at the district meeting?
I think there's gonna be
We're gonna
questions.
present,
Right,
and
but
there'll be questions
the-
directed to somebody.
right.
Which,
I don't know whether
if
the
the
committee should.
committee's
be answering.
recommendation is accepted by the commissioners, is it not then on the commissioners?
Probably.
And we've disengaged until something's approved and they've asked us to stay on through design?
I think,
Well, the budget committee speaks at the district meeting, and it's already
I
been approved.
think since it's
right?
the committee that came up with the recommendation, the commission's accepted it, but people wanna know, how did you come to this recommendation? And that's how, then the commissioners aren't gonna know the ifs, whys, and all the details of this, that this committee does. I think it will be somebody from the committee answering
I
those
think as a,
questions.
well, I think as a commissioner, I wouldn't have no problem answering a question if they wanted, but they may also want to hear from the committee as well. And as a commissioner, if they want to hear from the committee members besides me, because I'm on the other target block as well, it's like, would someone from the committee like to answer
Yeah.
that so that it's getting that
I think
feed.
Spread it out.
I think it would be good for the committee to have a representative that speak and answer questions, and if
Yeah.
they couldn't answer the question,
And
direct it to
defer.
somebody who would
Right.
be able to. I think one general spokesperson for the committee
Yeah.
would go
Yes.
over better than, well, it's similar to what like Kevin LaChapelle was for the police station. He did all the talking and answering the questions. Because you have more of a personal, you know, relationship with just one person doing the thing, even if it's just at a meeting. I think that's important.
One question about the March 3rd meeting. Should the committee members be at that meeting? Is that?
It would be
That'd
nice
be
Okay.
a good
if you
one.
That's
can,
the
yes.
plan. Okay, we're not just presenting it, you're not just reading it, it's gonna be interactive.
I think I would.
Is that a
for-
commissioners meeting?
It's
Yeah.
commissioners meeting.
Oh, what was
Do
that?
we need to make it a joint meeting?
March,
So March.
Did I not hear that?
first Tuesday in March.
3rd.
So March 3rd, the commissioners were going to present the draft report
Yeah.
to the commissioners with the consolidated
Oh, okay.
intent.
It's also Super Tuesday.
Oh,
So And then from there, the commissioners will have 13 days to kind of look over the draft report and absorb it before the
It
meeting.
better not be a draft, because then we're not gonna have time to finalize it. It's
Well-
gotta be the final report.
Well, the intent is we have this session and we have one more session before then, and it'd be nice to have the 95%, 99, 100% solution, but if there's something that has to be fixed, then
What time is that?
Yeah.
it would be 5:30 in here, just like
Yeah.
this Tuesday night.
Here's the other thing, we're running out of time to be able to prepare a presentation to the public. So I think if we can conclude our recommendation tonight, we have one more meeting before the 3rd. We were gonna.
We'll talk about that after at the end, yep.
I agree. We have to decide what the recommendation is. So it sounds like we're pretty close to
I
our
think
recommendation.
based on the
here.
members here who were polled, I will send an email out tomorrow to Todd, Tim, and Paul as well, just to get their input in to see, because I feel that's important. And then if that's the case, there's something outside what we had here, I'll push that out to everyone, because I really want that. And then that's something that we'll definitely have to filter through at the next meeting if there was a concern that I think it's important to have the input from
format you're under
everyone.
right now. If you copy and paste some other,
Yeah, if they're part of the committee, they should have a say.
Right.
like you're in
Whether
like
they
a head
agree
of
or
this
if they
format or
disagree
something.
and why, I'll make sure at the next meeting that why, just in case they saw something that we missed for some reason. I mean, I value everyone's input. The pending or the draft
It's not
recommendation,
fair.
are we looking at pretty much going with option 1? That's what I kind of solicited from everyone, based on what we had here for numbers, was we're going with option number 1. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think something should be noted that the majority of us reference number 2 as well as being an ideal but not feasible solution right now.
Okay. That's a good way of phrasing it, is that would be more coverage for the district, but feasibility
Yeah.
is not recognized as at this time.
Something like that.
What do other people think of that?
I think
You think the financial considerations are unfavorable at this
Yeah.
time for that option?
The financial impact
There we
isn't
go.
feasible for the district at this time.
Okay, that's a good reason.
I don't think anyone is looking at this as a one and done.
Right.
I think it's a one,
Step.
see what happens, how things go, what the feeling of the public is,
Mhm.
what people's financial situation might be, where they would, in the future, complete a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 1. It's phase 1.
That's, I was trying to.
Phase
I was
one,
spinning
phase two,
words
we
in
already
my
have
That's
head.
what
numbers.
Park Street was 35 years
And I
ago.
couldn't come up with phase.
And that's just my
what I was-
concern, if
that's-
you say phase 1,
That's the word.
is
Phase
that,
2 just
It's
gets
got-
eliminated.
is
The only,
that,
the only way it stands any chance at all of passing is in multiple phases. We've proven that time and time again.
I would be fearful of using that term or even talking about, well, 10 years from now, we may need another
We
station.
can't put a time frame on it because I'm going to live here in 10 years and a lot of
Could be
other
2
people are
years.
too. So like, yeah,
I-
yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
as I said before, we have to look at today.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what the district is gonna look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
Could be regionalized.
I just think we have to acknowledge the voices in the room that might be from Tilton, that might be concerned about response times, and say that we acknowledge that, but this is our recommendation based on what we have available at this time and, just what's viable financially.
And I think that is one of the ways we can overcome any possible any objections. I don't believe that there's anyone there'll be anyone in that room or anyone in the district that would say, well, there's nothing wrong with Center Street, why don't we just keep using it?
Mm.
I think that the condition of that building has been publicized well enough that
Yeah.
everyone pretty much knows that
Yeah.
it's not a usable facility.
And as it is, it's not getting to East Tilton anyway. So it's, you know, it's not like if we continue, well, we get there, but it still takes a really long time. So,
Well, then, and if we emphasize that the fiscal responsibility and fiscal restraint that we have practiced in this committee and throughout our discussions, while understanding that facility is no longer usable or will shortly no longer be usable, this is our best solution. And, you know, I hesitate to use the word at the cheapest cost.
Most frugal.
yeah, at the least
This
impact
is-
to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Can I put something like this?
Our biggest fan died this year though, so we didn't get him no support.
Who's that?
Joe DeMello, he lived up by me, and he'd get to the meeting every year, they'd come up with the water district, and he'd just, come on, just pay the thing, let's stop arguing about it. Whatever the fire department needed, he'd support it.
Not enough younger people getting there. I'm trying, but
It's gonna be more increasingly difficult because the median age of the district is growing and growing, or getting older and older rather than younger, which
right.
ultimately is another problem that the district faces.
Yeah, the fixed income that comes with that, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
burden
there's
on.
that, but then
So it's
you
killing
also,
hospitals.
Yeah, yes,
but then,
the calls.
yeah, so you have more people on fixed income, so they can't afford to have their taxes go up, but yet you have more demand of services.
They're the
provided
ones
by-
Because
that,
of the
they're the
age.
ones that demanding the service.
They need it the most, but they can afford it the least.
Right.
Yeah, that's what most services are that we provide as a society.
And as they get older, they don't have insurance, they get Medicare, and
Mhm.
hospitals aren't surviving on it.
Right, yeah, I just watched something about closing
Ernie's
hospitals.
gonna fix that.
Yeah,
I talked to Bernie the other day, and I told him if he wanted to plant his money trees up here, I'd be happy if he could plant some on mine. You know, I'd give him about 15 acres that he could plant some money trees on.
So while Lisa works on the recommendations portion, just to keep us back on
Yeah.
track.
I noticed
I know it's
Um,
primary day, but
So,
Just trying,
does everybody agree with that first? Actually, what's our official title? Building?
fire station clinic.
Is it? What do we call it in the beginning, I guess? We must have defined it in the beginning,
maybe,
It's the,
right?
building committee.
Oh, we just said members. We didn't,
And what is our name?
I think it's fire station committee, I think.
fire
Fire.
station.
The 2019 Fire Station Committee.
2019, it's the 2019 Fire Station Committee, I think is what the official name of it is.
That's what I remember it to
Because I was thinking about the report portion next, that it doesn't have to be for the presentation portion while you're doing this part. I mean, you can just take the reasons and just pros and cons. You could do like in 6 PowerPoint slides.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Bam,
Take
bam,
what we
bam,
have.
very clear, concise. The report will get, the goal is if we get this from March 3rd, throwing together a presentation would be very quick. We don't want long, drawn-out
Right.
presentation because it just will start inciting people.
Right.
You want clear, concise
I think it
points
should-
on the table
You're
of why
saying-
you came with it.
Yes, we'd include the pros and cons, or no?
I think that you want to talk about why you chose that station.
Right.
Right.
So
But does
That
that include
option.
listing everything? Because that's going to get really lengthy, and someone may raise their hand and say, "I think that's a con, not a pro." Like,
Well, what I
this
was
is just the
thinking,
commissioners, right?
I was gonna say that we
No, to the
evaluated
public.
1, 2, 3,
March
4,
3rd?
5, give
March
them the
16th.
directives,
Right.
Yeah.
we were talking
and
about
jump
still,
right
but
to
just
the
a quick-
recommendation
quick report.
that we recommend 1, and here's the reason why.
Correct.
I
The
like that
reasons
better, okay.
why.
So right in this section that I'm trying to get up there, I'm thinking this recommendation is based on the following. And then
Is
I
it-
think we could cut and paste those.
so that'd be a summary taken from the pros and cons,
Correct.
but not listing all
All
of
of
them.
them, right.
Correct, you could do.
Okay, I like
Is it
that.
out of the realm of possibility that we may have a joint meeting with the commissioners before March 3rd?
time-wise, it's gonna be very hard, because we're already losing that last week in February. That's why we're looking at moving it forward.
Well, why does the third have to be in the first week of March?
So we have
Months
two
are
meetings
flying
I'm
that
sorry.
week. We do a meeting on the 3rd and the 4th, or 2nd and 3rd, or, I don't
I think we can probably have
The
a,
district meeting's the 16th. There's
Right.
2 weeks between, 13 days between.
right, I mean, we
the
can
third
still
and the-
meet on the 10th ourselves to finalize the present.
That's true.
That's
So-
true.
Yeah, we have
Other
that
than-
corrective time.
That's true. As long as they're on board, we could move forward with the presentation.
Right.
Here's the problem, I'm gonna be gone that week, though. I'll be in
I'm
Arizona.
Well,
on
we'll
the
have
computer then.
the
But you guys
report.
can still do it.
Right.
We can make a PowerPoint
Yes.
and,
I
And
can
the
make-
other thing too is, I mean, we could set up even before then, in fact, I can, because I do PowerPoint all the time, set something up,
Yeah,
and then it gets
yeah,
edited.
like a wireframe, and then you fill it in.
exactly.
Right, and I
Yeah,
think
we
it would
should
be
set-
like, I think we should still
That's-
have existing.
That's what my,
We'll teach
my communications director tells me.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the PowerPoint, I think we're gonna have, these were the directives. This is a description of what you have, existing
Yes.
conditions. We need that in there, and I think a few pictures that we just insert.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah, like the
this is
map
our
of the lot.
recommendation, and
Yeah.
this is why.
Do we have an electronic copy of the maps?
We have it listed that we need to, and I think we have somewhere in the old reports, and we can
have
get
an
a
old
Google
PowerPoint.
print. Yeah, we have the Mansfield station, and
That's not this, that's less land than,
but that's digital that we can get the picture of. We had, from the Mansfield report, he had the lots laid out for digitally.
it wasn't surveyed.
Survey, no.
We have a
Lots.
digital of the,
Did you
I'll
have a
see.
digital copy of the
I'll s-
survey?
I don't recall, I have to go
Okay.
back and look at it.
we'll find it.
Yeah. Well, we'll need a map for this report either way.
But yeah, so
Yeah,
the PowerPoint,
absolutely.
we can probably look at being the 10th.
This map,
Right now,
that one,
exactly.
Right.
Something like
What-
that.
wherever this picture is.
We should
I
do
don't know
glasses.
about
and
that.
then,
That one.
Yeah, I have that, I
Something
have
laid out a
this.
little bit better that shows.
So
exactly
basically
what we wanna
what,
work with.
this came from.
You can do a
the
grade
Department
over
of
building on
Transportation.
top, kind of.
This shows this green area shows
What we're
the,
pursuing.
the land that we're trying to pursue.
Right.
Whether
Right.
that
I don't
comes
know
to
if that is,
comes to fruition, or not, that's
Right.
another thing altogether.
But theoretically, you could take that and you could do a shadow box over it of a gray area of what, an approximate 1,400, kind of like the engineer did that time. You could do a grade shadowed area of potential,
And the protest you
yes, but you could do that so when the public looks at that map, it's like, this is kind of a potential of what we're looking to
did. I
do.
don't know that we want to say anything about the size of the building, it's just, this is.
no, well, you could
Have
have
an
a
overview of the lot as is.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And,
Say
and what the current
the-
building takes up, and
the
then we
sur-
could
the-
show what else we have.
The survey map should show the building on it.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Right.
And it'll show,
then do we
it'll
have
show
that?
all the structures, doesn't it?
I
Or
can
doesn't
grab
it?
that, that's
does.
on the server,
I'm pretty sure it's
right?
something like that in the survey. There's also a lot more detail in the survey, like elevation lines and all that other kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah,
I'll
they
have to
want-
look at it and see.
Well,
Simplified
I
version.
can, yeah.
The, now,
I got it,
I'm saying
I think I
survey-
got it as a
survey
CAD
survey,
file.
That, we got that, you gave us that report digitally.
Yes, I did.
Yes, yeah,
And
so
there
I
were
can
maps.
probably
So it's
grab
in
the
there
map
some-
out
Yeah,
of-
so-
out of
so
one
we
of
have
those
it.
three.
With that
Okay.
report.
It's on,
so,
it's on
yeah,
the
it is.
the
on the-
OneDrive, right, or whatever you
Yeah,
call
the
it.
Google Drive
Google
thing.
Drive, okay.
Kevin will get
I'll-
it
I'll
off there for you.
Yeah.
And he'll email
You'll
it to you.
email
And
it.
understand.
I'll search for it, how's that?
Your grandchildren's grandchildren got a college for it.
Nothing on the state.
Oh, no.
That
I don't
won't be-
expect to hear from that for quite some time.
That'll be months and months and months.
So, to try to get the text of this completed, is it fair to get rid of public participation outreach? We're not gonna have time
I
to
think
do
that's more of
anything
something we
with it.
do with this, not that it needs to be a section
All
on
right.
here.
Well,
Well,
or
In
if
the
you do
future.
that, then you address that March 16th
right.
initial report will be presented to the district for input. Now you've,
Are we presenting the report?
A summary.
A summary?
summary.
Okay.
Because what you're doing is now you're gaining their buy-in by not saying we're making this in a vacuum of what's your input. Now you have a vested
What about-
input into it
Yeah,
a little
a
bit.
What about
summary
an
of this
article in the
report
paper?
will be presented to the
Well,
public
PD.
at the annual district meeting on
I think that
March
would be part of
16th.
next year as the
2020.
big, as the funding part of it. The first part is just trying to keep it, this is what we're trying to do, and we're not trying to just do it in a vacuum that we did it one night and here it was.
The annual
Let's go
district
with
meeting,
it.
yeah.
It's showing that the invested time in the diversity, which is one of the things I liked about this committee, is that there was such a difference of personalities on it.
Yeah.
But so that's part one of the public participation and outreach. That way we're trying to draw them in too, make them a part of the collaborative solution. Otherwise, you didn't represent me. You didn't listen to me. They're gonna say that anyways, but at least we can show we tried listening a little bit.
Would it make sense after the district meeting? Because everybody's not gonna go to that meeting.
Sure.
To
But someone's neighbor might go and they might
begin
say,
some
you,
Public information.
type of public informational meetings, outreach, whatever you want to
Well,
call
and
it.
that's what the architect's supposed to do.
But
'Cause we
the,
don't
Geez,
have
they
the
don't show up at the
plan.
district
We don't.
meeting, why would they show up at?
no, not
Well,
the
but part of their
plan,
design,
but
they're gonna come up with some
just the
schemes that
idea
need to-
of
That's something I think going forward, that we
Getting-
need to look more.
getting enough people, even if it takes 3 or 4 shots,
Yeah.
to get enough people and keep enough people spinning this in their head, so that when it all comes time to say yay or nay, you got more yays than nays. And I'll say, I keep saying this, a lot of the yays are gonna depend on the funding mechanism. Because I am a saver, not a borrower.
No.
And I don't think I'm in the majority, because people carry a debt that just astounds me.
So,
I think we need we don't need to copy and paste the exact ones, but I think we need
well, why
to,
don't I do that and then we delete? when you-
or summarize, sure, okay,
Summarize, so
start with
it's
it.
easier to have it up there and me take it out
Okay.
than not,
Okay.
right?
And Kevin, you were going,
Oh, I was just gonna say that, I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. We've seen the success that the police station committee had, in getting to the point where they have a building design priced and can be putting in front of the voters. And they did that with a lot of public, or availability of public input. Whether there was or not, I don't know, I went to a couple of the meetings. I don't know how well attended the other ones that I did not go to were, but they made it well.
Not well.
They made it well known
It
that
was-
this was going on.
It wasn't.
right.
It's not well attended.
Not the couple I went to, there were a few people.
Yes, people don't necessarily pay attention, you know, as seen by some of the public commentary online lately. Is, what do you mean that they're building a new
They
police
just
station?
built this, they said.
Jeff's built those.
They did,
okay.
30 years ago.
10 years ago.
So, you know, regardless of how much information you put out there in whatever manner, there's always going to be people that go, I didn't know they were doing that. But I think if we take, you know, a lesson from them and say, okay, let's publicize it as much as possible
Were
and give
those,
people the opportunity to have some input.
were those meetings always the same day of the week?
Yeah, we need to.
I don't recall, Kevin.
When we get to public information,
I mean,
solicit
it's gonna take some investment of time, which
Sure.
I'm willing to do, but, you know, if you had 4, I don't wanna call them public hearings, but
Information.
Maybe
Public
three, like
input
a-
sessions or information
Public
sessions.
So if you
information.
did one on a Monday one week, Tuesday another week, Wednesday another week, Thursday another week, everybody
has the opportunity.
Because if you do it on Tuesday, well, some people are never available on Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we go to that right here.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yep.
the more you can,
And only weeknights, or do we need to maybe have a weekend one?
Well, I think
I know we
that,
don't normally do that, but
Saturday,
I think we can
A Saturday
get to
morning?
this point, and then we
I
can
would-
Sure,
decide
right.
that
Yeah,
at
sure.
at
Yeah,
future
because-
meetings, because
And you
we're,
take opportunities like old home day,
it's true.
exactly.
and you have a table.
that's
Because
true.
I know the department participates in Old Home Day, right? So we have a table and say, you
Hand out a
know,
flyer,
here's information
here's
about.
the information, or
the
you
good
go to this
fire
link
station.
online to find this.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Okay.
Right.
People don't use the websites that are available to them.
Yeah.
It's so evident.
I agree.
Yeah.
But a
You see the-
handout would help.
Oh, yeah, but there's so much
You'll have to hit it
information,
from different
there's
avenues.
so much information available about simple little things like, and I shake my head when I see this stuff. Where do we vote?
Right.
yeah, you might-
And what do I need to bring? Why are you asking strangers on the internet?
That's,
Go
Yeah.
to the town's website.
'Cause they ask
All the
everything on
information
Facebook.
you
Yeah.
need
Someone
is
will know.
there.
but you know someone answered their question, right?
Yep.
So then they do it again.
Yeah.
So we need to be on Facebook too, that's what I'm hearing.
Right.
I just noticed in the report under one, we duplicated, we have this utilities exist, and then the next line down says infrastructure exists. So
Then
I am going
bump
to
it.
get
Get rid of one or the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
I just want
There you
to,
go.
everybody concurs with that.
Yep.
And then, so now I cut and pasted those further down. The pros
Yeah, so
down
you can
here. I
remove
figured
that
no
too.
sense in showing cons, because that's not why we based the recommendation, so I'm gonna get rid
Yeah,
of that.
we-
But what I'm thinking is we should summarize or pick a few of these, that as key is based on the following key.
Like, I don't think the traffic light is gonna convince a lot of people,
Key,
like, so
Oh,
we
that-
can,
That was what did it for me.
the traffic light, yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be LED though.
It's the only time they put in now.
You'd be the only one who knows
What's
it.
the-
We
All
don't-
right.
we don't want
I
to-
like the location is in the center of the, or is in, yeah, center of the district. Let's, and if people are like,
Where's that? Okay.
yeah, like that one, it is, whether you, it's the geographical center.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
you want to make sure you put.
Yeah, we can say that.
Geographical,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how, relative to this meeting with public question and answer thing, how do we deal with, or do we deal with, the presentation to the public? This is a recommendation of the committee, the commissioners have accepted it. Yeah, the chief don't like it.
I mean, do you think someone might say, Chief, what do you think about this?
Absolutely.
And of
Yes.
course you,
you're gonna
you-
respond
you
the
would
same
say-
way, be honest,
yeah,
that's okay.
He's gonna get up and say, this is
Yeah.
not my cup of tea.
Well, I'll
Which is
say-
rightfully, I mean, and rightfully so, because if it is, it is, if
Yeah,
it's not, it's not.
right, and you,
Right.
and you've made that clear here, and I think that we've all respected your opinion on that, so, yeah. So,
But in the end, I work for the residents of this district, and whatever they vote is what I enforce.
yeah.
And I answer to the fire commissioners,
Mhm.
and whatever their directive is, it's what I do.
Mhm.
If that's the will of the people and the directives of the fire commissioner, that's the way it is.
Mhm.
I haven't done anything differently, ever.
Right.
And that's the whole thing, is they may look at that and it's like, okay, we see that, but the reasoning behind it.
Mhm.
The reasoning is he's trying to get more coverage of the district. That comes with a significant cost, and when you put that on the table, because that is one of the downsides why we can't do that.
It's one of the
Yeah.
biggest, I
Right.
mean, it is the.
Yeah.
That would be the ideal.
And at some point, those concerns will be,
Mhm.
or that situation will be circumvented.
Say you go with Plan 1, Phase 1, or whatever the wording you want to use. Phase 2 would be theoretically a station somewhere near exit 20 at a cost of between $1.5 and $2 million, probably.
Today's cost.
Off of what
Yeah.
Today's cost.
today's cost is.
Yeah.
$7 million.
So whatever the project is that the phase one part is going to be, which we don't really know yet, I'm fairly certain that phase two, if it were today's cost, is going to probably be somewhere between 1.5 and 2. It may be less, maybe a little more, but that's my guess, my estimated guess.
When we start talking
Honestly,
about
I don't
that.
know if you have to
Educated
say key at all, you
Not
can
with
leave
the
it on
purchase
the
of a piece of
following.
land, though.
Well,
Yes, you
That
could,
could- really, you
for
think so?
about, I think,
And then just leave it
$175,
with a
175,000, you could purchase that piece of land next to the police station if the
Oh,
town
okay.
was so willing to sell it. Right now, it's gonna be converted to a football field.
So,
Reorientate the football field to east and west, which is not
Isn't
really the
that
right way.
anti-football?
let's focus
It is
back
anti-football.
on,
Yeah, we,
Yeah, we
so we
need to,
can consolidate this.
That's,
yeah, I mean, eventually, we're gonna have to,
Superfluous.
So let's trim out ones that might not be, you know, that essential right
like
now.
the traffic
So I'm
light,
thinking
can we get rid of the
light.
traffic light?
yes.
What's the perceived value of Park Street?
What's
Okay,
that?
we have Geographic Center
No, the
listed
third one
twice.
from the bottom. Possible
Possible
public perceived
perceived.
value.
Value, okay, we can get rid of that one, right?
Yeah. And then you have a duplication of the Geographic Center there, third from the bottom.
Oh, I copied and didn't cut
you could get rid of the single story would accommodate ADA because the architect doesn't really,
it. Right,
Yeah,
That
and,
doesn't mean it, he,
right, I
we
mean,
don't go
right.
two-story.
right.
Well,
As important
no,
as,
they might say
like,
no.
how much do you think the worker camaraderie,
Thinking 14,000
I don't think
Concession.
they care about that.
One
yeah.
But this one, it makes sense, right? The advantage of efficiency.
I think the efficiency piece
Yeah,
they'll
that-
care
that was
about.
a-
Get rid of the one,
Yeah.
I think that putting the response time will decrease for Northfield calls is like throwing a grenade in the road.
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
think you're right, you're right. Yeah,
That one is just because they're
It
gonna,
is a fact.
they're gonna come out with
Yeah.
the counter.
yeah.
Well, what about Tilton?
I think the middle two could be combined. It's the lowest cost because infrastructure exists.
Well, you could
Yeah,
probably
the
turn
district
those,
Yeah.
owns the
Don't make it too
Yeah.
small, though.
No.
Yeah,
No?
No, I
Okay.
think that's about as small as you probably want to make
Okay.
it.
The
Because if you don't have enough, then it's like.
They're like, you didn't
Right.
base
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
biggest
your
cost
reason.
saving is that the district
You
owns
guys
the
work for
property.
6 months and you get one page?
right.
It's not just cost, but it's not just cost, it's how simple it is to move forward. I mean, it eliminates so many steps of the process. So
Well, that's a good point, Keith.
Yeah.
That might be another bullet point that can add in
What's
there
that?
is, how do you say it?
she just said it, so
I
I'm
don't know,
gonna.
it's just, it simplifies the process as opposed to having to acquire new land and
Well,
go
it
through
shortens
that
the
whole-
length of time it would take,
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah, it's more about the timing, like, work could begin immediately because the district owns the property, or not immediately, but,
Well,
it shortens the
It's
time.
shovel ready.
Shovel ready.
Almost shovel ready, okay, so
None of those
Um,
projects work, because there's no such thing.
shortens the time to complete the project? Say-
Find
say
and
it again.
purchase land.
Eliminates the need to find and purchase land.
Okay, because we have
No.
district-owned
No, I
property
think
up there already.
I think you hit the nail on the head, we just gotta figure out how to say
Shorten
it.
times to completion.
Shortens and simplifies the.
I don't know if it shortens, but it might. It
Simplifies the
simplifies more.
process to begin building, or something like that.
Well, it does shorten it.
Well, it does
because
shorten it, because you don't have
now
to search for
you don't have to
property.
go out
Well,
and find a piece of property.
simplifies
There's
and
No
shortens.
testing needs to be done.
Because we've already done them.
Right. The time to complete,
We've already taken a few steps.
I still think it's gonna be
Still no boards?
a complicated build because we're gonna be building on one side, but we're still using the other side
Oh,
for
yeah.
its intended purposes. So it's
There's-
gonna be part one, part two building. But that's not
Yeah.
the
but that,
problem here.
yeah,
That's something we'll manage, or I will manage.
leave it at that, leave it at that.
I wonder if district owns property needs to be a main bullet, and then 2 sub-bullets are lowest cost and simplifies and shortens the time. So you have one big bullet for district owns property. And the implication of that yeah, is that you make the
Tavern.
lowest cost,
Cost.
yeah.
And I think this then belongs up there as well.
Yes, but actually make that a sub-bullet, so if you go up here,
Yeah,
Tab
you
in.
want me to
Just
tab
tab it
in
in
that
and
one?
make another,
yep, tab in works, or this one here, see how it has that arrow pushing it
About big
forward?
district owns the
Like that,
property, the
yeah.
first one,
And the lowest cost too.
and all the others are.
Under the district owning the property?
Yes.
I'm
Well-
almost thinking these should be like one, no, okay, the bulletin.
Yeah.
Because you could have a benefit of another site where infrastructure exists, where there's utilities and
Right,
such.
right.
You could have, one single station somewhere else. I think that those two around cost and the time for completion are sub-bullets of the district owning the property.
This one probably is too.
No, I'm saying you could have somewhere that has existing utilities, electric, water,
Oh,
sewer,
that's true. Not
theoretically.
necessarily.
Not necessarily here, so I think that's a separate one. Yeah. And if this is too confusing, if you think having the sub-bullets confuses it, we can put it back and just list them. That's how I would do it, but that's not what we have to do.
Is the reason it's the lowest cost is because we own the property?
We literally would not have to buy land, right? And there's no other property that the district
You don't have
owns
to
right
bring
now.
water and sewer in.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't see how anything else could be a lower option unless someone gifted us land and then
Okay.
put in all the utilities. Yeah,
Oh,
if someone's
thought you were
donating land,
gifting
yeah.
Can, in the last bullet there, with one apparatus, can you change the one to reduction in duplicity of?
Well,
Reduction.
it's duplication, technically duplicities means like, not being forthcoming about
the
something.
duplication,
Yeah,
okay.
duplication is technically the word.
With
Efficiency.
reduction,
It gets used a lot, meaning the other one.
With reduction?
Yep, reduction.
of duplication for,
With,
She can fix that after.
for apparatus and gear location.
So,
Not reduction, it's eliminating.
right,
And eliminates duplication
how about,
of.
I
has
like
the
it the,
advantage
I
of
like
this
it the
just,
way it was to begin with,
You got it.
personally,
get an undo button?
I can do an undo, you prefer
You
the
kidding me?
undo?
yeah, this is just making it more complicated.
Okay.
What did I just
Redo
do?
one.
Undo,
There
really?
you
Undo.
Yes, the top left is like an arrow that goes this way.
Yeah, it has one apparatus and gear
Little
location.
It's
backwards
pretty
arrow.
simple, and I think it's
Yeah.
to the point.
I like that.
Is
Yeah.
apparatus a plural?
For as much as you
Yeah, but
do
we're
for
presenting to-
antagonizing, how do you not
think
know
it can be
about
both.
these things?
I. Hunt your pet.
Did you find any of your signs?
Found them all.
Who had them, Wayne?
No, actually, they were just tossed over the bank and thrown in the road.
Yeah, no one wants to keep the evidence.
Right.
You can. I put them all on my shed wall.
Target practice?
No, I'm. Went up in Dwayne Harbour's garage.
What's that?
Went up in Dwayne Harbour's garage.
Yeah, from last time,
It's
right?
probably been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees,
Actually, I think I gave
adding
it to him.
something like that. The committee also acknowledges that future needs may or may not, right? Or may not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't put that in there.
I don't know if you want to put anything. Maybe it's good
All
to the
right.
commissioners, but I don't know if it's good to the public.
Okay.
I mean, what do you guys think?
No, I put it there because they're gonna ask.
Yeah?
They're gonna ask, well, what about us? What about,
Right. And this
So we're gonna have to convince them that this is, and I hate doing that. I hate,
How about we may, instead of this, we just say that we believe this solution, this is a solution to accommodate immediate needs,
I like that.
period.
yeah, there's probably nothing wrong with that.
Of the firefighters, really. It's not the immediate needs of the
Oh,
public, it's the
right,
immediate needs of
okay.
the firefighters, getting them into a safe working environment.
committee
True, I mean,
That's true.
believes or feels, I'm gonna just put this word right now.
Oh, I thought we were
What's that?
keeping that.
I think that's
last
only
piece.
I
part of
thought they said no.
That's,
I thought it was
in my mind,
mixed.
that's the most important
All
part.
right,
Yep.
I'll
But,
hit
you know,
undo.
the district needs,
Keeping or getting rid of this statement.
What's up?
This is the one about adding a substation elsewhere. I think the sentence
If
there
you're
is
talking
helpful.
about immediate needs, immediate plan.
Yeah, let's talk about
Substation-
immediate plan first.
Substation is not in the immediate plan.
Yeah.
It's in the, it's in
Committee feels or
Sure.
believes, and then we'll look for,
the process.
Believes is stronger than
Use
feels.
the thesaurus function to find a better
this,
word.
yeah, after, right, that this alternative or this.
This
one of the district's needs is
We
that,
call it a
you know,
Plan
directive,
or
this.
we have to have, a fire department that is
Selections and all.
consistent and well-trained and well
Select-
educated. And how do you do that
Selection.
when you have facilities that people don't wanna work in?
well, the guys won't complain about it.
Whether they complain or not
Right.
is irrelevant. You gotta have to go, you wanna sleep in Center Street, 3 nights a week? I've never slept there, but
Right.
A bunk's bunk.
Is that-
You take your job.
The current needs of the
It's the
district.
stairs, the
It
public
doesn't
impact,
At
things
the
like that.
time, but
Right.
if it's
Maybe
not meeting
that's
health
not
and
a
safety,
true
what's,
statement.
you're
No,
not
that's-
necessarily
right.
thinking at the
Right, that's
time,
all I'm
like,
thinking of, getting
if you
them
get
into a
cancer
safe working
later,
environment. Right.
you can lose
When-
3 years of your life
so-
because of that.
Right.
I mean,
know,
when
I
you're
don't
trying to
know.
recruit new members of the force, they go, well, this is our station. They go, holy shit, really? Yeah, I'm going to Guilford. The stairs don't look like they're straight.
Someone
Right.
doing job search probably is going to the
The worst
website
part of
and
the
is looking at
stairs,
it.
is every single rise is different.
I've almost
Yeah.
fallen down those stairs,
Yeah.
so, I know. You know what, I started typing that, and then I'm not sure we can make that statement. It doesn't accommodate all the needs, current needs.
Is the
Is the
best
best
solution to
solution-
address.
is
It's
the-
not accommodates, but it's
Please,
the,
that this selection, okay,
Best
is
solution for the,
the best solution
For
at
the
this
district.
time.
For the district.
For the district.
Because that then takes
Yes.
into the public as well as the firefighters, our equipment, our housing, so many other pieces of the puzzle.
Well, there's another perspective that I didn't think about. I talked about assets before. We have huge investment in our apparatus and other equipment that's in a building that does the roof leak, what kind of possible damage could there be to those assets because of where they're stored?
Right now,
Can't
they
wash
can't even
them.
wash them off right there, so road salt and all that is on wintertime, can't even handle that.
right, and that
Which-
eats away at the equipment. If there was an earthquake or a hurricane or something, I mean.
We have earthquakes all the time, just look at
Right,
Facebook.
big,
that
big
station's
earthquake.
pretty durable. I will say
Yeah.
that. It's gone through 150
I'm not saying that you
years.
wouldn't take out a dozen other buildings in town,
Right.
but some of your most expensive equipment for the town
You
for.
get good insurance though.
When the
Insurance
helicopters
doesn't
fly
help
over and
when
the power goes
you
out,
you don't
lose
have the
internet.
engine because it gets crushed under a building.
Who knows?
How do you know if you lost internet that the helicopter flew over?
You see everyone post up.
Is there something else that we want to
When
add?
that
on
loud
that
bang
bullet?
happened and there was a police presence.
It's kind of implied with the one apparatus and gear location.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
I think this
could
is.
say being housed in a new structure. Because that's sort of what you're getting at. It's being in a new upgraded structure versus an old. But I don't know that we want to get that.
No.
No.
Do we want to get into current requirements? So now you're talking,
Not in
Well,
this
okay.
summary.
okay,
Well, this
No.
is why we're recommending it. These bulleted.
Yeah, you don't have to go over everything in your recommendations. It should be like your takeaway points.
Right. Now, the last line I just left up there with the undo button.
Right.
But are we taking that out or leaving it in?
Which one?
The
The
last
bottom
Very
one.
last.
I think
Committee
one
also
above it answers
acknowledges
you.
Future
Future
needs may.
or may not require adding a which one,
I like the
No,
one
because the one
above.
above it kind of at this time.
at this time. Okay,
That's
all
my.
right, so we
She
do,
kind of wrote it both ways.
that's what I did, and then I thought it's easier for me to get rid of it after.
Remember, that's a fact of any
Anything, yes.
proposal that's ever been presented to us. At that time, that was the
The best at the
do-all,
time.
end-all, best deal there
Right.
was.
I mean, codes change, I mean, 2 years from now, we might have a whole different thing. You can't control that.
Codes go in a 3-year cycle.
Well, yes, and New Hampshire's always 5
5 years
years
behind.
behind.
Well, at least one
They're
cycle
3 now.
behind.
One cycle.
Yeah, so
They're
Sometimes
4
two.
years.
the
So the next
18,
one's
the
2015,
18 is out,
2021.
we're working on the, we're functioning on the 15th.
I
Right.
think we should go back to 95.
1895.
This building was there then.
It was
so-
Boca back then,
Alright,
right?
so,
Boca.
so what else do you have below that? Or is that the ending of it?
Well, that's
The
sort of the
appendix.
ending.
Okay.
And then the maps will
The
follow.
map we'll put,
Kind of a
I think the
summary
map
map.
is in the appendix.
yeah, I'll just, we'll, are there any appendices, let's, that we want in here? At one
Yeah, we
time,
could
we were gonna put all the
brainstorm.
other stuff, but
Well, glossary, or we talked about doing that,
We
but
defined some terms
We defined
earlier.
it.
Definitions are in
Yeah, we
there.
got that.
definitions are in there.
'Cause I'd rather they read those before they read anything else in the report.
rather than
Right,
wondering
yeah,
about
The
it the whole
headquarters
time.
and substation.
Yeah,
Were there
we
other
have-
definitions?
The definitions was headquarters and substation, station,
Okay.
is all we define.
Yeah.
Is there any other that needs to be defined?
However,
Career staff?
there is, in the recommendation, there is no reference to a substation.
In the recommendation, there is no reference. Now,
No,
no, we
but
took it
it's
out
elsewhere in the
because it
report.
wasn't,
Right, so my question is, do we need to define substation if we're not talking about one?
It's elsewhere in the report, so.
It's in one of the
it's in the
directives
report, but it's
about
just not part of our recommendation,
Yeah.
the Commissioners 5, so we kind of got,
right here.
what do you mean by
So-
the two?
2 and 3.
Yeah.
We
That's
got
fine.
the directives, and then we put in the definitions of headquarters and substation, because they're in the directives.
I like the idea of specifying call staff versus career staff. If we're referencing it. People might not know what that means.
So you want to add the definition of career
Are
staff?
the definite, is this part of the report gonna be for public, or is this just for? the-
Anybody will be
No,
able to read it
Now we're just
eventually.
fleshing out the
Public
report. This
information.
isn't part of the
No,
presentation.
I realize
we're talking
that,
about.
but I don't think.
Right, the Commissioners will know
Commissioners-
the difference between career and call.
I
Right.
see. Where will this report be shared ultimately?
It'll be on our website.
But nobody will,
Some people do
Some
go
people
and
might.
read.
not many.
When we make our Facebook post, we'll include a link to the
Yes.
report.
Well, I'll admit, just as a new member, that if the very first day you said to me, what's the difference between career staff and call staff, I might not actually know
Mhm.
the answer, other than I know a call staff isn't there at the station and that they're called in.
I didn't until the first meeting that I went to when it was discussed. As just a layperson, I did not know the difference.
But I think throwing the definition up there, just because obviously there is that perception out there.
But this is just.
Like, I
for
thought we had an
commissioners.
all-volunteer fire force. Like,
Well, I
really?
think this is.
People thought that.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, I see what you're saying. This
So-
report is only to the commissioner.
Right.
If,
Okay. And we had asked them to define substation.
Actually, that's a good point. These are their definitions of
definitions.
headquarters and substation, whereas
Right.
someone could look up online what call staff means or career
Right.
staff.
Right.
So, industry terms versus our terms. I think we should only define things that are our terms. I'm going back on myself, I know.
I can get rid of those other
it's
things.
indicative of
them
an
after.
open mind.
Hmm?
That's indicative of an open mind.
I'd like to think so. But you can tell me if I'm not.
But I won't believe it.
Have you saved this recently?
I just did.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it again. I just accepted all changes.
Did you what?
Save it.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
I know
So-
what that is.
Okay.
That's that
Yeah,
little
because
dish
that
thing
one
up
time I
there.
lost it when my battery went dead.
Right.
6 pages isn't
So-
too bad.
If you think
That's a
about it,
readable
How
report.
outdated is that icon?
It's a freaking floppy disk.
Yeah.
You can't buy- well, I guess you could.
It's what
buy
people
one.
associate with it
Oh,
now.
yeah, you're right. The little 3.5s.
Okay, so where are we at as a group?
Right at the town
I
hall.
think we're good.
I think we're good, and what I'll do now, because it's a report, we have this, we started with an outline, you remember that way
Yeah.
beginning? I'll just take all of these and make the actual outline from this actual.
What's the outline for?
Well, we're gonna have a cover, I assume. It's not a report.
It's such a short report. I wonder if we need a full table of contents and everything
I don't
like that.
So
Right.
don't,
I don't think so.
just
think-
leave it as a text like it is.
I like it the way it is.
I'm kind of comfortable with that, I mean, but what's other people think?
I think a table of contents doesn't get necessary until you have like a 20+ page report
Okay.
where people are having to
Trying to look
scroll
up
through.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just adding
Adding
things. If
things.
people are printing it,
Yeah.
now they're printing a useless page.
Yeah, you're looking at 7 to 8 pages when you add a map or two,
Mhm.
We're
and
at
then a
6
cover
right now.
page. Right, but that's why I say like
Okay, so,
a couple.
okay,
Mhm.
I'm just used to having,
Yeah, but you don't have to.
but I don't have to now, okay,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So I'll,
It costs less.
Exactly. Kill
we'll
less
print it.
trees.
You're retired,
Print
Lisa,
it
remember?
two-sided, I am, and I'm busier than, I don't know how I ever got everything done when I was with you. I am so busy,
All right,
My dad said that when he retired.
it's crazy.
so
All right,
what's the next
save.
step from the committee? Send this out to everyone again for, because I
Line up
definitely
the
want to make sure
currents.
we allow the ones who couldn't make it a chance to
Right.
see it.
Mhm. We do need to figure out exactly what's in this appendix. So
Okay.
we know that there's a map, but is there anything else that has to be here? Not things like, you know, the 20th question we think we might get asked, but like, what's essential?
Okay, so if that's the case,
I would suggest at least one photograph of each of the stations.
okay.
Oh,
Outside and interior, maybe?
So Lisa, can you just put that up there?
Pictures.
Map of Park Street, picture of Park Street, picture of Center Street, just listed.
actually, we need both Park and Center
Well,
Street,
no,
right?
we're not talking, this does not, the recommendation has nothing to do with Center Street.
No, but it's still in the report.
But it's in the report, we talk
Yeah.
about Center
Why we're
Street,
getting rid
so,
of it.
Yeah.
right, so,
Yeah. It's in
we
the
need
existing
that,
conditions.
and then we
it's-
need, what was it, you were saying, need photos?
A photo
Couple
of
of
each
each.
one.
Photos,
'Cause I think
Of
that's
each,
kind of where you
yeah.
were going.
yep, that's where it's going, just a few that, you know, exterior, a couple interior, and that could be it. That could, we actually could put, I'm used to doing this, because when we do the descriptions up here,
To have it there.
although the commissioners know what the place looks like.
True.
I do
I
think,
pull them, a lot of times I put them right in the body of the report.
yeah, I thought the purpose of this was, though, that it could be shared with the public.
Mhm.
They're
Whether
gonna
we
s-
expect
it or
they
not.
will- They
They
will
want
share it
that.
with the public,
Yes.
I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might
have
be
to.
easier to put the
It's a
pictures
public
at the
document.
bottom so they can read
Inline?
through it.
It
Yeah.
will be shared with.
And then if people want, they can see down below, so they can actually see an aerial of Center Street
Yeah,
with literally
okay.
so encroached in that, okay, first off, it's such a small footprint and the turn radius,
It's
they
like a
can just see
Google
that.
Maps.
Yeah, so,
Okay. Um,
We had a bunch of
Can you
them.
have
we want to put
exterior,
we want to
interior
put
Google
subtitles,
Maps.
right? With subtitles? Okay.
yes, I think subtitles under each picture, just in case.
If somebody doesn't know
And what were
what
you?
I was saying those photos should be, you know, an aerial view, exterior, interior. Like,
we can
Okay.
do the Google Earth,
yeah, that's what I'm
and
thinking
grab
for
something
aerial.
off of Google
Yeah.
Earth, but
Yeah.
Aerial, interior,
Just because of Center Street, that will definitely show
exterior.
Yeah.
a lot. And then
Yeah.
the survey map can actually be your aerial from, because actually we had that, you had a Google Earth in that report for the Park
For
Street.
Park
Well,
Street,
we have the,
we have.
Yeah,
the
those will
survey,
import.
Right.
So
Put
would we?
that in there.
We only have a survey map of Park Street then.
Right.
It sounds like.
But we can
Okay.
do an aerial of Center Street.
Yeah.
Do we have something that would show the property lines
we
too?
don't need it.
We
Not
don't.
really.
I don't
Yeah.
think we need it.
Showing the parking lot and the cars stacked so closely around it, I think it will.
We'll get the impression. Yeah.
So I can get
We may
that
want to
off Google.
circle it
Yeah.
somehow
Yeah.
or something like that, so it's
And that's
clear.
something we can finesse.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else we need to add into the appendix?
At one time, we talked about calls and the but we really didn't,
I think with this
it
being more
wasn't part of
station.
our
Right.
report.
Yeah, and that's not gonna support our recommendation either. Not that we only wanna
Right.
do that, but,
Right.
I mean, we did have that graph that the chief gave to us.
And the response and
Yeah, incident locations, this one.
you can put that in there.
To what end?
Do we mention response times anywhere in the report? Or location of, because if we
Yes,
do,
We should
in the
mention it.
con,
Yeah.
let's look at the con.
Yes.
response time.
If it's not
Response
mentioned,
time
that
will
needs to be.
increase for Tilton calls versus from Center Street.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I think people are gonna need this graph for context.
Incident locations.
Yeah. I think this is 2018.
Yeah, I can do a new one for 2019.
Just because you want to show that you're not biased towards the one
Right.
you guys
Right.
show.
Why does that A in aerial look shorter than the other numbers?
Between the I and the L.
You go to.
No, it's
They
just
do, but
the.
on my
the,
screen they're not, it's the,
They're kind of getting
It's
cut
the
off.
Distortion to
Dis-
it.
Distortion.
What I just,
but it does on the wall, yes.
How'd you
Here
do
it
that,
doesn't.
Kevin?
Oh.
You are so technical, savvy.
Google Maps.
no, I Googled maps with property lines.
There you go.
All right,
Maps with
save that
property
and
lines?
send it to us.
Right there.
You gotta take them when you can.
That's a good map.
Kevin taught us something.
Well, Kevin teaches us
That's
a lot.
not-
Says
that's
Kevin taught us
not,
something
That's not correct.
Technical.
with the computer.
That's not correct.
No. The parking spaces it shows that we own, the town has granted us those parking spaces to use, but the actual property line is right off the side of the building.
And is that what your map shows?
No, it
It
has
just
that
shows
little
a few
one.
spots.
No,
It shows-
no.
Huh.
Can,
Hey.
Take that back.
No, that's the fact you're able to find that was pretty impressive.
Well, I'm not gonna show the property line,
I mean,
but that's
I
pretty
came
cool.
across
for
something
those
by
things.
mistake.
Was there ever a deed to the station or anything?
Of course there is.
yeah, there has to be.
From when they put the addition on, was the land
Put the deeds.
already there, you know, or, you know, I just,
Some old deeds don't define things the
Yeah,
way the
A
new
lot of
deeds
old
do.
deeds
A lot
are
of them
just
just said, this
useless.
parcel that was passed from so-and-so to so-and-so,
Right.
meaning saying, and there's no boundary.
Right.
When I first bought my Bay Hill property, I referenced a bull pine that was struck by lightning in 1949. That ain't damn anymore.
So it's coming up on 7:30.
39, I'm sorry.
So are we good with it now to send this out for review?
I have one, I
Okay.
have a question.
Yes.
are the eyes not tall enough?
So we as a committee agreed that that our recommendation was going to be the first directive. We have a quorum, and I understand wanting to give the other committee members the opportunity to weigh in.
Okay.
So when are we deciding whether this is, because what if they're not here next week?
Well, you can email them, right?
I'm
And
going
read
to
it.
email them tomorrow
Right.
with what we have.
I'd
And
say
ask
the
them for
next
their input.
meeting, we
The
should
next meeting,
say.
we're gonna
you-
finalize-
You must share your feedback by next meeting, and this will be
It
finalized.
won't-
They have to be at the meeting, otherwise it, right? Did we
Right.
get to that?
Probably will
when we
not
can-
change the outcome.
It's a committee, so I don't
Well,
know.
that's
if
my
it's the
point.
same
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here.
Right, and there are 3 missing.
Right.
3.
But they may have something to add to this that we don't know, and so they can submit it. Even if they submit it by email ahead of time,
And then you share it with
and then
the group.
share it. At least then we can
Oh, okay, so they'll
do their
email it to
buy-in.
you. Yeah.
Individually to you though, right?
I think that's the proper way, is to do it individual, not group.
Don't, you don't want to
Okay.
Our group.
All right, so I will reach out to them individually, each one, and let them know this is the product of where we're at. Next week, and we're gonna talk about that in a second, at the next meeting, which we're gonna push for next week, we are going to finalize the report. So if you have any input, either share it in advance to me and I will print it out and put it on the table for your input to be added,
Or be here.
or be, well, I'm gonna try to say it a little bit politer is what I'm trying to.
Or bring your comments to the
That
next
would be
meeting when it will be
So are we
when it will
meeting
be
next
final.
Oh,
Or-
So that's.
Show up or
That's
shut
That's the
up.
next,
Okay, so the new business, or the next meeting portion, and you weren't here at the time, Chief, the last week in February is gonna be very hard for quite a few people. So we're trying to move it up to next Tuesday, which was
The 18th.
the 18th.
day after President's Day.
That's right, Monday's the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
The 18th,
Which is probably gonna be squeaky.
so we have to just
Yep, I do too.
make sure the room's available at the.
Yeah,
Figure
I'll reach out to
recycling day
Kathy
off
on
if
that
they
too.
offer it.
I think I get 13
It's annual
holidays.
meeting, 7 o'clock.
Yes.
See, I get federal holidays.
I gotta see how bad the school board's gonna
I know,
be, 'cause that's gonna
pays
be
me.
their meeting.
I'm not even paying me right
You may have to run that one, Kevin.
Hmm?
You may have to run that one,
What one?
the 18th.
Next week.
That's
Oh, wait.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I thought
Next Tuesday.
19th was the school, 'cause I want to be there too. 'Cause I'm running for budget committee for that
Oh, wait,
one.
I'm in the wrong one.
18th.
So next week, you're not
Hold on,
gonna
let
be
me
here?
pull up the calendar.
Nope, I can.
Oh, so you-
Okay.
You could half hour.
Nope, I will be. The school didn't move it over because of President's Day. So yes, I can be here next
So that's-
Tuesday, the 18th.
That's 5:30, right?
Yes.
And the only thing that I see on the Northfield calendar is the select board meeting that day, so we're good.
So the goal is next Tuesday, we will get the final product for the commissioners for the 3rd to the best of our ability.
There's no reason why we can't be done. We're done now.
We're done.
I
Now
know,
we're
I
done
agree.
getting the
It's just,
appendices
yeah,
out.
getting the pictures and just,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, that's why
I
I,
think we should start working on the presentation next,
if
assuming.
we have the flexibility in it, that's
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, between now and next week, what I'll do is try to put these things in a draft and then bring it to the next meeting. So
Yep.
that we're, then we see,
But
yep,
if you
that's what
could-
we like.
Like last
I'll
meeting,
send
send
you
that to me
that
so I
today.
can forward that to them.
Yep.
I'll forward it to everyone.
Right.
Yep.
And if you've noticed on the bottom of the report name, I always put it as this date.
I did the
So
same thing,
that
so that we know the
we-
most recent.
Right.
Yep. All right. So is everyone so far good with next Tuesday for our next meeting?
Works for me.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any other concerns or RFIs we need to generate or get or before we close the meeting? All right. Then I say we close the meeting at 7:35. All right. We got the remote and then the camera. I think this was productive, and I think we're almost to the end for this part.